What's up, guys? Welcome back to Common Sense Trucking. Really quick one today. We're going to go over some lease purchase trucks or trailers. So just kind of go over some pros and some cons. If you're new to this, you've probably talked to some older guys that are dead set against lease purchase. I get it, but don't let that scare you fully because there are some pros to going with a lease purchase truck. I'm going to go out here right off the bat and say I do not own a single truck. I do not plan to ever buy a truck to do a lease purchase with or anything like that. I'm not in the lease purchase business. Cowboy is not in the lease purchase business whatsoever. We have guys with lease purchase trucks. We have third parties that we use. They are not buying them through us. So I'm going to get that out. I'm not here to sell you on a lease purchase, okay? Actually, the very next video that I do is going to be over dealership notes and financially where you need to be when you walk into a dealership to buy a truck and what goals you need to set from there. So we're going to go over both options here, okay? So really quick, let's go into the pros. So number one is going to be credit. So a lot of your lease purchase providers are not going to check credit, or if they do, they're still going to accept bad credit. That's the biggest reason I think that a lot of guys get into a lease purchase. Even if it's bad credit, they're still going to accept you. A lot of times they're going to look for some bankruptcies, or they're going to look for like outstanding child support or anything big that's going to, potentially be a refusal. Aside from that, they're not too terribly worried about your credit. They know why you're there. So don't ever be ashamed of looking at a lease purchase because you have a poor credit score. They know why you're there, right? So a lot of times anyway. Number two, depending on where you're buying it from, it could potentially be a zero down situation. So even if it is a down payment, it's going to be a lot less than potentially going to a dealership and having to pay 10, 20, 30%. There are 0% down options at dealerships too. It just depends on the truck you're looking at. But across the board with a lease purchase, it's going to generally be a lot smaller down payment than what you're going to see if required at a dealership or somewhere else. Number three is tax benefits. It's a big one that nobody seems to talk about. Your tax benefits running a lease purchase truck compared to a dealership note, there is no comparison. You're able to deduct 100% of your lease purchase payment on your truck and trailer or trailer. And that's huge at the end of the year. Now, it's great when freight's good and you're out there making a lot of money. When freight's tough, it's not doing as much for you, but either way you look at it, you're getting a massive tax deduction, massive tax benefit to running a lease purchase truck and or trailer and making that lease payment. Okay, so it's a big one, a big reason to consider running a lease purchase depending on how much money you're making or plan to make. Number four is walk away. So there's a lot of walk away leases. There's a lot of depreciation based leases. So walk away means you're done with it, you walk away from it. It's no harm, no foul. You walk out the door. There's not as many that do that anymore, not like there used to be. But even now, the only thing you're really looking at when walking away from a lease is going to be a depreciation-based system. So if you got in a truck, you drove 50 or 60,000 miles in that truck, wear and tear on the tires, the brakes, the general stuff that's going to be, used on that truck, naturally they're going to say, hey, look, you put this many miles on, here's our scale, tires, brakes. We really want you to kind of replace that, as long, get it back in the condition that you received it, which to me is it's a fair way of doing things, right? So, but again, there's still plenty of them out there that are true walk-away leases. So I went ahead and put that on the pro list, depending on where you're getting a truck. All right, guys, so now let's get into the cons of a lease purchase truck. So two major cons to it. Now, there are three that I added to this list. There are more, but these are the three big ones for me. Number one, which is the biggest, is most of the time, it is a massive payment compared to a dealership note. Massive. It depends on the truck that you get, depends on who you lease from, depends on the term, but most of the time across the board, you have to look at it as a lease purchase is going to be higher interest overall. It's going to be a longer term a lot of times, or it's going to be just a larger payment, maybe with the same term as what you would see with a dealership. But you have to look at it as kind of a buy here, pay here situation. A lot of lease purchase companies it's not a lot different from you have poor credit. You can't just walk into the GMC dealer down the street and just expect to get a 2023 or 2024 model pickup. You are with poor credit, maybe just a little bit of money down, you're most likely going to have to go to the smaller used lot down the road, pay a pretty high interest rate, and get what you can get. It's the same idea. So the payment is massive. Now, most of the time. Now, that's not a huge deal when freight's good, numbers are good, per mile is up, the whole nine, and it's not bothering you as much. When freight is bad, it is extremely detrimental. It can just kill your income, kill your profit, and run you out of business faster than you can even blink. When freight is bad, we saw a lot of that last year. It was really tough for a lot of guys. So keep that in mind. When freight's good, it's no problem, and guys tend to forget, how bad that payment really is until freight goes into its slower cycle and guys are scrambling just to break even. And it's not even about turning a profit anymore. It's just breaking even. So that's number one. That's the biggest one to me. Number two, this is kind of a small one. You have to be careful. There's a lot of shady lease purchase providers out there, kind of shady business practices, things like that. It's hard to get any deeper on that. It just kind of depends. You just have to be careful. I see a lot of ads and stuff for a lot of companies that it's just, you can kind of tell there's some shady stuff going on with, are you actually going to get the title to that truck when it's done? And just be mindful of who you're working with, right? Because you're going to pay them a lot of money for that truck. So be mindful. Number three is another big one. Most of the time, they're not going to report to your credit bureaus and stuff. So a lot of times you might be making a big payment for 3 or 4 years and you didn't have any credit going into it. Well, even though you're making that big payment and making it faithfully, they're not reporting it a lot of times. Some do, but a lot don't. So be careful with that and ask that question is, are you going to report this to, for my credit? Like, am I going to start seeing some help on my end where I am at a point at some point to go to a dealership and buy one? Am I building my credit? Because a lot of times with a lease purchase, it's not being reported and it's not helping your credit whatsoever. So that's, like I said, I wanted to keep this one short, go over some pros and some cons. And hopefully this helps some of you guys. If there's any questions you have, please comment. I'd be happy to look it over. And if I have an answer, great, I'll answer it in a comment. If not, I'll get an answer and bring it to you. Like I said, on this next video, we're going to go on look more towards the dealership route for a truck, and hopefully help some of you guys know what to expect and have everything ready before you go meet with the dealership. A lot of times it's not as hard as you think to go buy a truck. A lot of guys aren't looking, but it's not as hard as you think sometimes. So anyway, guys, I appreciate it. And like I said, I look forward to the next video. And if you have any questions or anything, please drop a comment and we're here to help. Thanks.